Hello everyone, it's Michelle here. How are you? I'm back to continue reading part of chapter 1, part 1, From Dust to a Diamond, written by me. And I think the last time we left off, we spoke about making it through the storm and how we have to not blame ourselves for things that are happening, rather understand pain and compassion in a way that enables us to move forwards rather than stay stagnant in one place. And I think I spoke about trauma not shaping where we're going, understanding that it's a part of our story. Yes, you did experience trauma. Yes, this is what happened, but it's not what's going to continue happening, and I'm not going to let it shape the rest of my life. I'm going to use it to do something maybe positive with, or I'm going to use it to develop my strength with, or I'm going to use it to help another person with. I think that when you go through something traumatic, it's for a reason. It does make you question yourself, like, why me? Why is this happening? What did I do? But at the same time, all those things could be for a positive reason. Maybe it is you because you're the person who is able to shape the world. It happened to you so that you can help thousands of others. It happened to you because you probably know how to deal with it in a very strategic way in which others don't. And therefore, you're having to endure that pain so that you can help understand someone else who may be going through that same pain. You'll help them become an overcomer. So sometimes you are that test dummy for a reason, so that you can help make a difference. I did quote Isaiah 58:17. No weapon formed against us shall prosper. I believe that sometimes we can be our own weapon. Our own weapons live within us. We can be our own worst enemy before others become our worst own enemy. And it's about dealing with our own demons and our own insecurities and our own fears. Once we learn to do that, no one else can mess with us. Do you understand? So I think that it's so important to build up these mechanisms so that once you're strong enough to understand your purpose and your existence and your pain and your trauma, once you understand it and accept it, it helps you to build specific boundaries so that others do not come in your way and try to continue or repeat particular injuries. I think I mentioned as well that I wrote about making it through the storm, and I just found it really interesting because life can be a storm. If you think about all the things that some individuals may have gone through, it can be like a whirlwind. I can definitely say, like I mentioned before, that I've experienced various whirlwinds. However, not physical in the real world, like an actual hurricane or a whirlwind, but life is constantly throwing stuff at us, and it's about learning to roll with it, roll with the punches, roll with the wind, move with it. Sometimes when you try to move against it, it can throw you in a different direction. So it's about having the right strategies to move with that wind and be in motion with that particular movement. Understand it. I was just thinking about something with relations to dance. Because those of you that know me, I love dance. I still do. Absolutely love dance and performing arts. So a lot of how I think is very creative and expressive. Movement has so much to do with how we write and create and express ourselves. Because when you think about it, you're creating a movement. What I'm doing now is a movement. Do you understand? But we'll get back onto that element of stuff later because it's very wide, just wide topic. So let me just go on to page 7 of this. Okay. So with my book, there's a reflection after each chapter. And then after each part. And at the end of the chapter, I give you like little tasks. So there's like lined paper here for reflection. So you get to reflect and write about, certain incidences. And yeah, I like things like this because it helps you to learn. Not just read, put it down. You can actually use your own experiences and add it in, draw something out of it, assess maybe what it is that you've experienced and identifies ways to make you move forward and achieve, great outcomes. So, like I said, I'm going to read page 7 because I'm rambling on. And we can just have a chat about that. Okay? So, trauma is not just an event that happens once and disappears. It is the invisible weight carried long after the moment has passed. It shapes the way we think, the way we feel, and even the way we view ourselves and others. Trauma can be loud and obvious, or it could be hidden and quiet, like a shadow that follows us everywhere. Some people imagine trauma only in the extreme of war zones or natural disasters or horrific acts of violence. Those are certainly traumatic, but trauma is not limited to the extraordinary. It is also found in the everyday places where hearts are broken and safety is stolen. A child who grows up and never feels seen, a teenager that carries the weight of constant rejection, or an adult betrayed by someone that they trusted. All these experiences can leave scars just as real as any physical wound. So, what trauma really is? At its root, trauma is an injury to the soul. It's what happens when something overwhelms your ability to cope. In that moment, the mind and the body do what they must do to survive. But survival often comes at a cost. You may have heard of flight or fight mode. Your body tends to go into flight or fight when you're going through trauma. So you start to think of survival rather than just living comfortably and happy. You start to just think, how am I going to survive? How am I going to get through this? Sorry, let me go back. Perhaps you disconnect from your emotions to get through the pain. Perhaps you tell yourself it didn't matter, just so you can carry on. These survival strategies are powerful, and they help us to make it through the storm. However, they can also linger, shaping the way we live, even long after the storm has passed. Trauma is not a sign of weakness, it's a human response to experiences that were never meant to be endured. The fact that you're here reading this means you survived something that could have broken you completely. And that's not a weakness, it's a strength. So that's a paragraph. And you know what? It's true. I have to agree with myself. It's a strength. Like, I have to say that everything that I've gone through at the time, the pain was unbearable and I wish it wasn't happening. And I questioned myself, why? But I can honestly say that it's made me stronger. What doesn't kill you definitely makes you stronger. And could have easily been broken. You could have left the earth. But you're here fighting. And that's what you have to think about. You're here to see another day. You've been given the opportunity to fight and move forwards. So I've got here the different phases of trauma. To understand trauma, it helps to recognize its forms. Trauma is not a one-size-fits-all experience. It can enter our lives in different ways. Each one has its own mark. Each one leaving its own mark. So because I wrote this, I'm kind of like saying it in my own words at the same time as reading it. Hang on. Yeah. So yeah, I'm kind of like, improvising as I go along, but I'm actually reading it, if you know what I mean. So the different phases of trauma, I've got childhood trauma, I've got relational trauma, systematic trauma, hidden trauma. I put systematic trauma. Okay, I just want to talk about that because it relates to what individuals might be going through now in certain parts of the world with regards to the hurricanes. So systematic trauma, sometimes trauma doesn't come from a single person, but from the systems around us. Okay, you could be going through discrimination. It could be through poverty, injustice, or environments where dignity is stripped away from us. This form of trauma can make people feel powerless, invisible, and constantly unsafe. So, when you think about it, this is what a lot of people are going through now in Jamaica. They feel unsafe, they feel powerless, they feel invisible, and they are going through systematic trauma. Okay? And it's something that needs to be dealt with as soon as possible because, especially for the young people, it's going to be so difficult for them to go to school and learn and feel happy. So, yeah, it's just really important that they get the help and the support that they need to move forwards and to live fulfilled lives. This event that has occurred is going to take a lot of trauma response therapy. And that's my specialism. So I'm actually researching trauma response strategies and mental health and well-being as part of my research. So yeah, all these things play a huge part. And systematic trauma is real. It does exist. and it does have a lingering impact. So let's look at the lingering impact of trauma. So, what makes trauma so heavy is not the event itself, but the way it continues to echo. You may no longer be in the painful situation, but the voice still speaks to you. It might tell you that you're not good enough, you're always going to be abandoned, or it's all your fault, or you didn't try hard enough, or you can't trust anybody. These messages become a part of your inner dialogue. They shape decisions, limit dreams, and cause us to repeat patterns we wish we could escape. Trauma has a way of planting lies in soil of our hearts, and unless those lies are uprooted, they continue to grow. So, this is definitely how a lot of people have been reacting in a lot of the videos I've been seeing. They've been blaming the Prime Minister for this, that, and the other. And yes, the Prime Minister has a duty of care. As you know, I've written a letter to the Prime Minister of Jamaica. He does have a duty of care. But at the same time, he's not to blame for the Hurricane Melissa. Or is he? Because I know a lot of you have some really interesting theories. Let me just put it that way. And there's a lot of, should I say, conspiracy theories? But let's just keep it real. At the end of the day, God creates most things in this world. He's created everything, okay? God's created man. God created the earth. Okay? God created the earth. So if something is going to happen to the earth, it's down to what God has done. And maybe it's God that's uprooted all of what's happened in order for the earth to grow and have a fresh start. Because so much happens in the world that we don't even know about. And soil is very, very expensive. Soil is what creates our food. Soil creates how we live and survive. Soil is a part of our existence. And when you think about it scientifically, so it's so important that the soil is treated with respect. It's so important that the soil is treated with respect. If people are constantly digging up and burying and doing this, that, and the other to the soil, and it's being affected by unsavory things, it will need to be uprooted. Okay? You can't mess around with God's earth and his world and expect things not to happen. So yeah, unless the lies are uprooted, they continue to grow. So no one wants anything to happen to their life and their home and their livelihood, but we're not in charge of everything. There are some things we just don't have control over. And that's something we have to accept as human beings. You can't control everything in the world. We can help to shape the decisions, and we can help to shape what is controlled at any given time. But God has the last say, you know? That's why when things are happening or people are doing things to you, or you feel like things aren't going your way, just leave it. Just leave it. Leave it to God. He'll sort it out, you know? But we've got to learn how to be caring, kind, and compassionate regardless of what it is that's going on, to ourselves and to others. We've got to learn how to be kind to yourself and to others. And that goes back to learning not to blame. You know, it's not your fault and it's not their fault. Stop blaming. So compassion first. Understanding trauma begins with compassion and not blame. Too often, people minimize their own experiences because they tell themselves others had it worse, or so mine doesn't count. But pain is not a competition. What wounded you matters. Your healing does not require permission for someone else who suffered more. When we look at our own trauma with compassion, we begin to see it not as a sign of failure, but as evidence of survival. You did what you needed to do to endure. You held on. You found a way. And that is courage, not weakness. So, it's page 9, the end. And I've got a reflective prompt. Think back to a time where you felt unseen, unsafe, or silenced. Without judgment, write down what that moment taught you about yourself. Then ask, was it the truth or was it trauma speaking? So that's it, guys. That's part 1. Chapter 1, part 1. Next is part 2. I hope you've enjoyed listening to me. I hope I haven't been rambling too much, because I do ramble a lot. And I will move on next to part 2. How it shapes identity trauma, how it impacts your relationships and self-beliefs, and how to have awareness, compassionate awareness. So yeah, thanks for watching.